Hi, Catherine here from Yoga Naraska. We have been talking about the menstrual cycle and the impacts it has on your physical, emotional, and mental health, especially in the context of PMDD, Premenstrual Dysphoric Disorder. If you're not sure what that is, I will put the link in the description and you can check that out. I have a whole other episode specifically on PMDD and what that is and a little bit more about it, so check that out if you're not sure. Today we'll be discussing the luteal phase. So we've been talking about the 4 phases of the menstrual cycle. Today we are on luteal, or in the PMDD world, we call it brutal luteal or hell week. That should be descriptive enough to tell you that it is not a fun time in the PMDD world, and indeed for most people who menstruate, up to 75% of menstruators do have some negative symptoms in this part of the menstrual cycle. So important for us to know, so let's get into it. This is the later half of the cycle, overlapping with ovulation a little bit, obviously. And this is the time of the month where the follicle that once housed this egg is now starting to sort of decay a little bit, and this is sending hormones throughout the body, namely progesterone. So in most people, progesterone is a very relaxing chemical. It's almost like the influence of maybe alcohol or an anti-anxiety medication. It's like a sedative. It's very calming, makes you feel calm and at ease and very restful. But in some people it has the opposite effect. So at the beginning of the luteal cycle, the level of progesterone comes up and then back down. So usually right after ovulation, most people have this sort of calm time, and then the effects sort of wane back out down towards your menstrual cycle coming, and then that's when people experience, on that downside, they experience PMS, so premenstrual symptoms. So a little bit of bloating, cramping, food cravings, maybe feeling a little bit more emotional than normal. Maybe some breast tenderness as well. Just depends on the person and the symptoms that they get, but about 75% of menstruators find that they do have some premenstrual symptoms towards the end of this luteal phase. And this phase lasts about 14 days, so the first 7 are progesterone coming up, and the next 7 are progesterone coming back down. So for people with PMDD, though, many of them are sensitive to the fluctuations in hormones. So it's not the fact that the level of progesterone gets high, it's the fact that it's going from low to high to low again, and it's these times in the middle, the fluctuation, that is causing the upset. And progesterone in many people with PMDD seems to have the opposite effect that it does in most other people. It actually makes you more anxious, more fearful, more depressed, more agitated, irritable, all that sort of thing. So researchers are still trying to figure out exactly what's happening here, whether it's to do with the progesterone itself, the fluctuations in hormones, the neuroreceptors that are changing the progesterone to different forms, and the receptors in the brain. It's very, very difficult to sort of figure out what exactly is going on in PMDD, but it's very clear that in the luteal phase, especially the second half of the luteal phase, that is when people with PMDD seem to have the most symptoms. So again, this uterine lining has been building throughout the cycle ever since the last menstruation, the last menstrual phase, and now it's getting quite thick. So those prostaglandin hormones that we talked about now are starting to be produced in the body, and they're starting to cause the uterus to cramp, and that's causing those uterine cramps, is causing intestinal cramping, back pain, all that sort of thing, and it's not very fun. And you know, we expect menstruators in our society to be able to be functional all the time, and we kind of skip over the fact that in a good amount of time they are in pain, and we just accept that as normal, but it might not be normal. You can take over-the-counter pain medications for this. Some people like to use heat, such as a hot pad, but they actually can be quite painful, and if it's becoming a big issue for you, you should definitely talk to your doctor, because it could be an indicator of a more serious illness, which we'll talk about later. In terms of PMDD, symptoms in this phase will include depression, anxiety, irritability, mood swings, changes in appetite, changes in sleep patterns, the physical symptoms such as bloating, breast tenderness, and just feeling overwhelmed and really down on yourself. And these symptoms collectively are enough to cause severe dysfunction in your work life, in your home life, and in your relationships. So I was thinking a little bit about this brutal luteal phase, and I wanted to talk about how I would describe it to somebody who does not have PMDD, which is really, really difficult, especially if you're not in the PMDD mode. It's like almost like our brains do this thing where it's like self-protective and you forget about how bad it is until it happens again. Sort of like how I'd imagine mothers don't really remember the pain of childbirth, or else they'll probably never have second children. It's kind of like that, except it happens like every month. It's almost like a protective amnesia a little bit, but I will do my best. For me, it kind of feels like I'm trapped in this like bubble and it's filled with like smoky, misty, gray fog, and I can see the world around me, but everything is tinged with this like gray blackness, and it's hard to breathe, and I feel suffocated. And no matter how I try to reach through this bubble, it's like super flexible, and I can't get through it, and I'm trapped inside this like bubble of anxiety and depression. And I'm sad because I'm not engaging with the world in the way that I want to, and I'm anxious because I feel like I can't breathe, like I'm being slowly suffocated. So I know it's all good and well to say, oh, anxiety and depression are symptoms of the luteal phase, but if we don't really talk about what that means, it's hard to really quantify it, especially for people who don't experience it. Also keep in mind that up to 30% of people with PMDD will make an attempt on their life. So this is really not something to underestimate. Lots of people have intrusive thoughts, suicidal thoughts, engage in self-harm, and things like that during this time of the cycle, because those feelings of anxiety and depression are so strong. And although it can be difficult to talk about, we need to talk about it so we can bust that stigma and support the people who are going through this and who really do need that support. A lot of people with PMDD will say that they feel like a completely different person, and that, like their normal self just disappears for a week or two of the month, and somebody else that they don't recognize comes back, and they're like trapped in this person's mind. Like they have the same body, but there's a different mind that's trapped inside their body and is controlling them. And that sounds a little bit weird, but actually that is kind of what it feels like sometimes. Like you feel like you're thinking somebody else's thoughts, and it's really hard to escape that and to feel like you're in control. In fact, feeling out of control and overwhelmed is also one of the symptoms. So it's a really tough thing, and I really don't wish it on anybody. And some people find that the whole luteal phase, so all 14 days, including a couple into their menstrual phase, are very symptomatic. And some people find it's just a couple of days before their period. It really depends on the person, and there may actually be subtypes of PMDD. This is sort of a new area of research where some people are more likely to have a longer luteal phase or symptomatic luteal phase, and some people will find that their symptoms are a little bit of a shorter window. Some people with comorbid disorders such as anxiety or depression that they experience on their own outside of PMDD, or things like attention deficit hyperactivity disorder or ADHD, or obsessive compulsive disorder, OCD, they might find that these conditions are sort of aggravated in this luteal phase, and this is known as premenstrual exacerbation. So the changes in these hormones are impacting the illnesses that they normally deal with throughout their lives and throughout any time of their cycle. They find that the luteal phase aggravates the symptoms of their ADHD or OCD or depression or whatever they are already dealing with as well. Physical conditions such as IBS or joint pain or fatigue can also really be impacted in this luteal phase of the cycle. So if this sounds like you and you find that these conditions are acting up during your menstrual cycle, you should look up premenstrual exacerbation. And you can find out more about that at the IAPMD website, the International Association for Premenstrual Disorders. So in terms of self-care, this is a really, really critical time to be engaging in self-care, although I know it's very difficult when you're feeling very unmotivated, down on yourself, feeling like a failure, what's the point? But this is the most important time for you to be taking time to rest and to make sure that you're eating healthy, that you're still getting some exercise, no matter what it is, anything you can do, even if it's just like getting outside and, walking to the end of your driveway and back. Just a little bit of sunlight, a little bit of movement can make a big difference. This is also the time of the month where you need to go easy on yourself. Remind yourself that that these thoughts that are coming up, that you are not trying hard enough, that you're not good enough, and that nobody likes you, are thoughts that come up for you every month at this time, and they might not necessarily be true. And from experience, you know that this time of the month that's very difficult for you will pass. It will eventually resolve. You just got to hang in there for another couple days. Do as much as you can to make yourself feel comfortable. Try not to engage in distressing situations. And know that this isn't your fault. This is an actual medical condition. It's a problem with the way your brain responds to hormones. It's not something that you have failed to do or you're not trying hard enough to at, despite what society might be telling you, or your family or friends or doctors or teachers or bosses might be telling you. You know deep down that this is something that is happening to you, not something that you're doing on purpose. You might be feeling like your emotions are very overwhelming at this time of the month, so it's a good time to do some journaling or to visit a therapist or talk to a trusted friend. I like to do a little bit of yoga and meditation, although it can be really difficult to get on the meditation cushion or the mat when you're feeling crappy. Anything you can do is worth it. I like to do gentle or hatha yoga at this time in my cycle. So I kind of just get on the mat and put on some music and just flow through whatever poses are feeling right in my body at that time. Sometimes holding poses for a longer period of time, sometimes challenging my balance a bit, which might be off at this time of cycle. So it can be sort of a nice little mind focus activity to be focusing on my balance or my strength to keep my mind off of the overwhelming emotions. And sometimes you just got to feel your feelings. Sometimes you just got to lie on your yoga mat and let those feelings move through you, because sometimes fighting against them is actually what's making it feel bigger and more difficult. Sometimes you just gotta lie on your bed or on your yoga mat or on the couch and just cry for a little bit and let it out. And that's totally okay. Whatever you need at this time of the month, you should take for yourself. So we did all of our 4 phases of the menstrual cycle. So obviously when the luteal phase ends, that's when the menstrual phase begins. So as soon as you start bleeding, your luteal phase ends and your menstrual phase begins, and the whole cycle starts over again. So if you regularly menstruate, you might be wondering, I wonder where I'm at this time of my cycle. So the only way to know for sure is to track your cycle. You can do this on paper. In the links, the description to the show notes, I will include a link to a printable tracker that you can use to track your symptoms to know where you are in your cycle. Or there's lots of great apps that you can use. My favorite one for PMDD is called PMDD versus Me. I'll link that as well. That one has all the PMDD symptoms that you can easily track. If you're looking for a more general one, I also like Flow and Clue. They're really great for just a whole range of symptoms, and you can flip them into like a pregnancy mode if you're looking to conceive. And finally, there's Hormonology, which is a really great one if you're looking to understand sort of what's happening emotionally to you through different times of your cycle. This one will tell you a prediction of what day that you are on of your cycle and what things you might be feeling and what actions you can take to make yourself feel better. So it's a really great app as well. So I would love to hear about your thoughts about Hell Week / the Ludial Phase, brutal luteal. How do you feel in this phase of the cycle? Do any of these symptoms seem to be familiar to you? I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments or on social media, so do get in touch. Let me know how you cope with this part of the menstrual cycle. And if you need some help coping, I have prepared a mini yoga class, 20 to 30 minutes, specifically for the luteal phase. So if you'd like to grab that, as well as the other 3 classes I've made to support you through the menstrual cycle, please join my mailing list. The link is below. Or you can join my exclusive Facebook group, Yoga for Your PMDD Cycle. I will be posting them in there, and I would love to hear your comments. And once you join, you'll have access to all 4 classes. You can save them and go back to them whenever you need. Whenever you have a menstrual cycle, you can just follow those 4 classes over and over and over again to support you throughout the menstrual cycle. So that's all for me today. Thanks so much for tuning in, and I will see you next week.